John, we've got FactCheck.org hauling a wheelbarrow full of fake news. How are you today, John?
I'm really well. I just want to do a quick audio check, make sure I'm not booming. We had some complaints last week that I was too loud compared to your audio, so just do a quick
That's
check
going to
with the
be
audience.
my fault if that's the case, and I have some...
No, I can make myself hotter or not from here as well, and if the audience is complaining, I can, we can take a second to tune in. So is that okay for everybody? Is anybody complaining? Is that too booming and loud? And if so, I'll turn it down.
Okay. Nice data center, right. John.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much. One of my pride and joys, right? So this is the world from whence I came, and I traded one jungle for the other.
Yes.
But I feel at home in this type of setting. And so for those of you who don't know, this is what I used to do, is I used to build very complex systems for very big companies. And that's my background. And so in this show, what we're going to talk about is FactCheck.org, because there's so much information. I don't know, have you noticed this? The amount of misinformation and disinformation in the last couple of weeks has been like they let it all out. It's like, what the hell happened? Have you noticed
this? It's a deliberate campaign, absolutely. And I have been bombarded. See, what the gauge that I have, John, is that we've got a lot of well-meaning viewers. I think most of the people who watch the show and tune into our sponsor exclusive shows, which is coming up in just half an hour on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen, patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Overwhelming majority of the people who tune into the show are well-meaning people who want information. They want facts and evidence. There's a small number of social engineers who try to inject fake news and throw us off and things like that. But I think a lot of people are feeling apprehensive, and they hear these things, and sometimes they appeal to their desires, their biases, or whatever, and they want them to be true, and in a good faith effort to try to spread the information around, they send it to me. And when we hear about chatter, what happens is I start getting a lot of the same information from a lot of different people, and when I run it down right away, I can tell that it's not real. It's this hopium, it's the type of stuff that I would attribute to the 17th letter of the alphabet, and none of it is true. I think they're trying to fill the pipeline with noise to attenuate any signal and prevent it from getting through.
Absolutely true. And that which you pointed out a while back when you said, in fact, it was the moment that Sidney Powell mentioned those two supposed systems.
Hammer and scorecard.
Right, and we did a show about it. And that your theory was that they use this kind of misinformation, disinformation, in order to attach to somebody who is well-meaning, like Sidney Powell, and now she loses credibility because that wasn't what it was. And we talked about that before a couple of weeks ago. And if you guys haven't seen that, we did a show on that a couple of weeks back. And I think you're absolutely spot on. I think if you raise this noise level right now, I mean, I'm looking at a list of stuff that has popped up in the last week. It is so fantastic. I dare not even mention it.
Yeah.
I'm afraid to mention it.
We could talk about it a little bit. Everybody's been talking about this concept that Trump is going to declassify Russiagate information. First of all, I've seen no indication that that's going to happen other than John Solomon saying it. What difference would it make right now?
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm starting with, again, factcheck.org, this whole notion of managing the conversation that seems to be so important to Jack. Right, managing the conversation, and it's important to have a safe space for the conversation, right? And so we have factcheck.org, which is sponsored by or brought to you by the Annenberg Group, and we're going to look at that tonight. And what you and I are going to do is we're going to ask ourselves, what type of PhDs, what types of scientists and masters in biology do they have working at factcheck.org? What kind of PhDs in statistics? The staff there must be remarkable, right? And what you and I are going to do tonight with our backgrounds, right? You went to NYU, you went to film school, you're probably one of the top experts in the world in 3D film and 3D visualizations and all that. I've got my skills and my backgrounds and my certifications, and together with the amount of just pure experience that we have, I'd put our CVs up against anybody. And so what we're going to do tonight is we are going to fact check some of the memes. We're going to fact check some of the rumors, things, and we're going to talk about one of these dynamics that people keep asking is, how does John Cohen keep his John E. Hoover channel? How is it that YouTube hasn't taken him down? Now, they have struck videos. They've taken videos down, but they haven't taken the channel down. And the channel hasn't had one of those vicious strikes. I haven't had one of those in a long time. How is it that that's the case? I'm going to show you guys how that happens, because it's on purpose, right? In other words, it's by design. And I'm going to show you what it is I think that I'm doing that allows it to continue to be there. This week, I started a new series of podcasts. You guys may be familiar with Hypothetically Speak. This week, I started a new series of podcasts called Just the Facts. And in Just the Facts, we don't talk about any hypotheses. We don't have any theory. We don't have any ideas. It seems like Jack likes it better that way. So no ideas, no theories, no hypotheses. I think Zuck likes it too that way. So we just focus on facts and numbers and present them. We don't draw any conclusions. We just present the numbers. And that's it. And so that's the show, Just the Facts.
John,
Jack.
let me ask you, speaking of Jack, I want to ask you your personal opinion of these efforts taken by Jack Dorsey's Twitter, forgetting for a moment about the individual holding the office of President of the United States right now, but the fact that a private company could stifle, silence, and overpower the President of the United States. What do you think about that?
Yeah, for me, it's about the office of the president, right? And we said it last week. I said, I think the president was focused on what to do about TikTok and whether or not to allow Alibaba and Tencent to list on the stock exchange. And, the reason that I'm incognito is because I've been calling out the largest shareholder of Twitter. And the largest shareholder of Twitter, historically, maybe not today, but historically the largest shareholder of Twitter, is the same man who said, "You'll never win. Withdraw from the race," paraphrase, and that's Al-Walid bin Talal. I predicted after the Las Vegas shooting, when I brought forth my hypothesis that Al-Walid bin Talal would never step foot in the United States again. And now I'm going to put 2 asterisks next to it, during a Trump presidency.
Yeah, that's true for sure. You're a little bit choppy on the internet today, John. So what we'll do is we'll try to get you reconnected through another VPN when we break for the sponsor exclusive segment that people are going to be able to get on Subscribestar and Patreon. Can you give us a little bit of an idea what we're going to be specifically going into today?
Sure. Let's pop open that deck, and I think I sent you a PDF or that handy. I've got a couple videos queued up. So for those of you who are patrons that'll be on Subscribestar and Patreon later, I've got a number of videos queued up, one of which is fake news. And it's important that people understand the difference between sort of information that we bring and what is fake news. And so it's important to have an example or two. And so the first example that we're going to be showing when we go patron only is a video that South Park published this week, the title of which is "Eating Gluten Will Make Your..." And I don't even want to finish the title.
Make your what?
So the title is "Eating Gluten Will Make Your Dick Shoot Off" is the name of the title. And that's from South Park this week. Now that's not true, right? That's not true, right? So we're going to take a look at that because they go through this whole scientific explanation of why it does. but it doesn't, right? So, and they're obviously making fun and doing satire. But we're going to do some fact checking on the show. Last week, we talked about this quote from Edmund and
Burke. Yeah.
yeah, Burke, and he says, "Those that don't know history are destined to repeat it." And you're going to hear a lot of people say things like that, and it's becoming more and more important now. And he also said that in order, the next slide, if you go to it, it doesn't take much for the triumph of evil. It just takes good men doing nothing, right? And so I think that's why we're all here, right? And by men, back then, they meant people, right? So, and I guess for those of you who are trans species, he meant you dolphin people too, okay?
Right.
So the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing.
Right.
Okay? So let's go on. All right, so tonight, Fact Checkers, how is it that John Collins' channel, the Johnny Hoover channel, has not been censored? How come Candace Owens does get censored? I'm going to show you. And when we go to our patron-only hour, I've got a clip of Candace Owens explaining the censorship, and in her explanation, she steps over the line. And if you and I were fact-checking, I'd press the buzzer. And I'd eject her, okay? All right.
She sued them, didn't she? I think she successfully.
And you'll see the results of her settlement, and her production quality is spectacular. She must have got a new tech toaster or something. I mean, it looks amazing, but we're not even 2.5 minutes into the clip. And she steps over the line. So we're going to give her a little, Candace Owens, the same age as my daughter, right? So we're going to give her a little bit of a lesson in how to calm down.
Candace Owens?
30, 31, something like that, 31 years old. So same age as my daughter. So the net of this is we're going to give her a little bit of a lesson in how to behave yourself and how to not step over the line, how to not crack the ice, right? And we're going to show her that, and we're going to do that patron only. Let's go to the next slide.
She's about to be a mom.
Yeah. All right. Last week we talked about the sex matter, right? And we said, is this going to be my second Nobel Prize for medicine back to back? I mean, do I take the prize 2 years in a row? And that would be awesome. I mean, I'm working like a Mark Spitz collection of 7. That would be awesome. So I want to follow up on this because it's really important. And this is kind of the key to how I do what I do. Next slide. All right. In these 2 pie charts, sex B, the blue, is more than twice sex A for these 2 age ranges, 35 to 44 and 45 to 54. However, if you go to the next slide, these 2 age ranges, B is not greater than or equal to 2A. You've got to be careful. You've got to be really careful. And so the claims that I make are very specific and fact-based, or I wouldn't make them. That would be stupid, right? So will you hear me say that there are twice of the group 55 to 64 that are dead? No, because that's not true. But if you go back up one slide. Both of these age groups, it is true based on the data. And this is what drives the fact checkers crazy. And this is the part that I'm finding amusing and entertaining. And that is, I'm doing something here that's driving them nuts. And I'm going to define that for you guys in just a second. All right, so let's now go to the next. So the point here is that for these 2 age groups, for what was that, 35, go to the one where it is equal to 2A, the one above it. All right, so 35 to 44 and 45 to 54, twice as many men are dying as women. Period. That's a fact, Jack, in those age groups. But
according
as soon as
to
you
data,
go to these, according to the
CDC.
data. Now, as soon as I go to the other age groups, that's not the case. So I don't make the claim, right? Now, this is what I mean. It's very specific claims. Now, in these two age groups, it's not the case. We go to the next slide. All right. So I ask questions like, does sex matter? It appears that it does, right? If that's the case, if that's the data. So let's go to the next slide. Now, this is the whole age span, 35 to 74. So from people 35 to 74 years old, that's the ratio of male to female. And the blue is men and the green is women. This is the CDC data updated January 13th. Okay, so these are facts. This is why the channel's still up. As much as this is inconvenient, uncomfortable, an embarrassment, it's true. That's why the channel's still up. Because I'm careful. And when I'm not, they take it down an instant and they don't tell me what it is. So it's not easy to fix.
Right.
Last week I put up an hour and 45-minute video. I don't know which part of it was offensive. I have no idea. So let's go to the next slide.
It's really bad that they don't tell you that.
Oh. All right. So YouTube has been particularly tense about election topics. So I want to hold off on that. There's enough other stuff going on with people dying, right? And this is one of the things that I was saying when we were talking about Vegas and everybody was trying to impeach the president back in 2017, 2018, 2019, and Russian collusion and all this stuff. And I kept saying, you know, for everything that Julian Assange has done, for everything that Edward Snowden has exposed, there's not that many dead people, right? We have the Chelsea Manning exposure of the gunships shooting the journalists, right? But there weren't as many people killed there as in Vegas. And other than that, there's not a big body count in the Edward Snowden revelations. There's not a big body count in the Julian Assange revelations. What we've been talking about between Las Vegas and this,
yeah, that's true.
We're in the millions now of people who've died where, and the evidence.
Where what? Sorry, John, we got a real rough connection today. People who have died what?
The people who have died from in Las Vegas, the people who've died from this pandemic, right? There are aspects to these narratives that people don't know. Information we've been bringing forward or attempting to bring forward, potentially is way more damning than anything that Julian Assange has brought forth. And with no disrespect, but look what's happened to them.
Yeah.
Why is Julian Assange in prison? And if the Saudis decide that you and I have violated their laws, do we get an extra because we disrespected members of Saudi royalty? Because I said Might bin Abdullah tried to kill his cousin, and just by saying that, I may have violated their laws. Do I get extradited to Saudi Arabia? Do you?
I don't think so.
You're just like Julian Assange, they're going to say. You're the same as him. You published John Collins just as bad as Julian. You should go to jail, and we're going to extradite you to Saudi Arabia so you can get your lashings. I mean, I don't get it. I don't get it. So let's move on. All right, let's move on. So let's go back to the deck. And so factcheck.org. Who are these people? PhDs? Masters? MIT, Harvard, Stanford? Who are these guys? It's the Annenberg Foundation, sponsored by Facebook. Annenberg Public Policy Center.
Whoa, yeah.
Okay.
Look at that.
Okay.
I don't like these public policy centers, these think tanks. Like, exactly, who the hell are they?
Well, let's go next page. Let's see what we know. So these folks are the arbiters of truth. And so I'm thinking, so the staff must be doctors, PhDs, right? These must be the top researchers in the world that work at factcheck.org.
Probably alcoholics and porn stars.
So go to the next. Well, that would just make it more interesting to work there. Let's go to the next slide if you can. So yeah, so they're trying to debunk false stories. And so that's why when we go patron only, we're going to talk about how eating gluten does not make your dick shoot off. Okay. We're going to deep that. We're going to start
I had
there.
waffles for breakfast.
Okay. So we're going to start there. And then let's go to the next slide if you would. I got a bunch of things I want people to see before the cut. All right. It's about controlling the frame. And this is how I keep the channel up. For those of you who know what I'm talking about, there's a whole bunch of theories behind this, right? Controlling the frame, right? And you can apply to a bunch of different things. And I learned about this when I first became single for the first time as an adult. I learned about that, okay? If we go to the next slide, you'll see what I mean. I make memes where I'm controlling the theme. I'm controlling the frame. I'm comparing Ethiopia to Iowa. Nobody else on planet Earth is comparing Ethiopia to Iowa. And what that does is it breaks the algorithms. What doesn't break the algorithms is when you guys repeat the crap that you read about from conspiracy theory crap that you send, and Jason ends up with 14 emails about the same thing in his inbox, right? That's where you're not controlling the frame, right? Controlling the frame is where I say something like, for example, when I make the statement that half the people that work at Facebook don't have adult brains, they can't cut that out because it's true, because we've shown the backing research. We've shown the scientific research that says that your brain is not considered adult until you're 30-something years old. And then we've shown other research showing that the median age at Facebook is 29. Well, that means half the people who work there are 29 and younger.
Kitty
and
brains.
That means their brain. Well, it just means they're not adult brains yet, right? It doesn't mean they're stupid. It doesn't mean they're malicious. It just means,
you know, and it's an interesting topic for us to just spend another moment on, because I do want to take back that joke. We're not disparaging anybody, but you did point to an article where scientists made this determination that the brain is still developing. I look at some of the decisions made by some of these people I encounter out on the streets. That young guy, John Sullivan, who was inciting the crowd at the Capitol riot, who's just been arrested. And I can't understand how somebody would make a decision like that, but it's because they're not experienced enough, their brain's not developed enough, their life experience is not developed enough to understand consequences.
It's more than that. Yes, I agree with you, and there's more, right? So everything you just said, and allow me to pile on. As much as I love Candace Owens, and we're going to make an example out of her with love, right? So this is tough love type stuff. I think she's great. She's articulate, love listening to what she has to say. But she hasn't really worked anywhere. She hasn't had a job working where she gets a paycheck from a Fortune 500 company. Never had that experience. She's never had the experience of working for a Fortune 10 company, right? She's never had the types of experiences that you've had, working with James Cameron on 3D crap, getting
never worked with him. I just spoke with him briefly.
All right, well,
I've worked with his people.
All right, so his team, whatever. But again, your experiences in the industry, the people that you've worked with, the stuff that you've done, right?
Spielberg.
Well, Spielberg does, but we're not talking about Spielberg. I'm talking about poor Candace Owens. He's getting ejected off of YouTube. Oh, you worked with him.
We got a real rough connection on you, John, and we're very, very close to we got to get you reconnected, so I want to leave us enough time to do that testing during the break. I'm sorry to cut you off, but hopefully people will join us on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen, patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, or subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Join us over there. We'll see everybody in just 5 minutes. We're going to get this connection relinked. And thanks for watching, everybody.